McGraw-Hill Professional presents First, Fast, Fearless, How to Lead Like a Navy SEAL. Written by Brian "Iron Ed" Hiner, Navy SEAL Lieutenant Commander, retired. Foreword by Ken Blanchard. Narrated by Scott R. Pollak. Foreword. When I was a young boy, I read comic books. Lots of them. One of my heroes was Superman. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's still around today. For a brief time in my early years, I believed that he was real, an actual living superhero. Eventually, I realized that the Man of Steel and his alter ego, mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent, were nothing more than the invention of Jerry Siegel's and Joe Shuster's creative minds. Since that time, all through junior high, high school, and college, my only real superheroes were my mother, Dorothy Blanchard, and my father, Ted Blanchard. My dad was an admiral in the U.S. Navy, and he, along with my mom, taught me values that I have never forgotten nor neglected. Things such as love of God and country, integrity, respect for others, generosity, and the sheer joy of learning. Then, without warning, along came another kind of superhero, another man who loved God and country, who had integrity, who respected others, who gave of himself, and who loved everything about learning. This man was a student of mine at the University of San Diego, USD. He was in my classes. He was pursuing his master's degree in executive leadership, part of a program that we had developed with the USD faculty for their School of Business. He seemed like an ordinary guy, interested in learning and leading. Little did I know that he was already a significant, established leader. This student was training elite teams and then leading them into battle, where they could easily lose their lives. Now, I don't know about you, but in all my years of leading and teaching leadership skills to others through books and classes and lectures, I have never told anyone, "Follow me, and, by the way, you could die." What teacher, what trainer, what corporate executive or nonprofit CEO asks that of the people he or she leads? Well, Ed Hiner did exactly that. He lived by a code that few of us can comprehend. Ed, now retired, was a U.S. Navy SEAL for 20 years. He led brave people into battle, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and in many other hostile places around the world, fighting odds that we can't possibly imagine. And he won. I believe that the reason he won is that he knew some secrets that few others have discovered. One of those secrets? He knew that stress is a killer. It doesn't just lead to heart attacks or PTSD. It leads to underperformance, indecision, and on-the-job misery. He also knew that, among the many external and internal factors that lead to stress, poor leaders do the most damage. He knew that while some stress is good, it helps keep us sharp and focused, too much of the wrong kind of stress can actually destroy high-performing organizations, whether they be military units, corporations, educational institutions, nonprofits, even families. These are the things that Iron Ed can teach you. I challenge you to read and absorb every word of this book. It's a revolution. It's an inspiration. And it will be your ally when you inevitably march into the battles of business and life. In some ways, I was Ed Hiner's teacher, and I'm proud that I can say that. But in many more ways, Iron Ed was my teacher. I'm pleased that I can say that. Ken Blanchard. Introduction. Becoming a Leader of Leaders. Late one evening in early May 2011, the President of the United States held a televised news conference to announce the killing of the world's #1 terrorist, Osama bin Laden. As we all know now, U.S. Navy SEALs were the tip of the spear of that operation. Since early on in America's war on terrorism, we've heard stories of great heroism by American forces, and Navy SEALs in particular. Navy SEALs have a reputation for getting the most difficult missions done. But they're also known for their extreme standards of physical and mental toughness, strength, endurance, and agility. Some SEALs have risen into the national consciousness through books and movies, including Lone Survivor, No Easy Day, and American Sniper. All give great accounts of heroic Americans in action. But they don't tell the whole story. That's where First, Fast, Fearless comes in. I am a Navy SEAL officer, retired from 20 years of active duty in both leader and follower roles. I have risen from being the lowest-ranking member of a platoon to being the commanding officer of an entire task unit at war. I've seen it all, and I want to tell the whole story. I want to tell the story of leadership in the extremes and how that leadership paradigm can work for you in civilian life. Beyond extreme physical and combat achievements, we SEALs are also known for mental toughness, bias for action, decisiveness, creative thinking, adaptability, and perseverance, all under extreme stress. Yet, apart from the image of the steely-eyed killer, thanks in part to those books and movies, among others mentioned above, SEALs also have a deeply human, values-driven, and virtuous side. We get things done through, by, and with others, and we rely on a strong foundation of honesty and trust. These qualities, all found in the world's most effective leaders, afford a unique and effective way of doing what others cannot. Leading units into battle requires more than just elite warriors. It requires elite leaders to build elite organizations beforehand. Behind the tip of the spear, there are hundreds performing different jobs and dedicated to the mission. The challenge is clear. How do we take on complex, ambiguous, volatile, and dangerous operations that bring so many together from all parts of the military? How do we approach such extreme missions and dangers while keeping everyone and everything flying in formation? The answers lie herein. Great leadership matters, and every leader can benefit from the first, fast, fearless leadership that we hone in the SEAL teams. First, fast, fearless leadership makes it happen. The 9/11 terrorist attacks brought about a period of great stress for U.S. Navy SEALs with continuous combat deployments around the globe. No other time in American history has involved special operations warriors in sustained combat for so long. Yet, in the face of such adversity, SEALs have enjoyed the highest retention rate anywhere in the military. We continue to be resilient and flourish in environments most people cannot imagine. But First, Fast, Fearless isn't a book about war. It doesn't glamorize war, bravery, or any actions of my own. I've had my fair share of war, felt my fair share of hurt, experienced my fair share of stress, and seen my fair share of failures and setbacks. The intent of First, Fast, Fearless is to capture the essence of true leadership, a leadership style and brand carefully honed and forged from years of SEAL experience and determination under stress. It's a system that works, and I believe it works equally well on the battlefield or in the boardroom, or anywhere in between. Stress got you down? Try good leadership. 6 years after 9/11, I became the training and readiness officer for all SEAL teams on the West Coast. It was my job to ensure that people were trained and ready to deploy in all physical and psychological aspects. I helped build a resilience program to better understand and resolve pressures confronting the force. For this program, we held a week-long off-site conference. The working group included about 70 SEALs of different ranks across the community. The goal was to identify the stresses we face and how to reduce them. One big takeaway was the importance of taking an offensive mindset, a central theme of First, Fast, Fearless leadership. The off-site group also recognized the effects of leadership on resilience, retention, productivity, and overall morale. Leadership emerged as the main topic of discussion for the entire week. Leadership, initially regarded as a stressor, came to be regarded as the answer. By the end of the week, it was unanimous. Leadership was the thread that tied everything together across the force. We could identify where bad leadership had devastated SEAL teams. We charted deployments, considering for each one the person in charge, how that team did overseas, the retention rate, and how team members bounced back upon return. We didn't need PhDs to figure out the pattern. Great leadership is critical in times of stress and fear. It stared us right in the face. I began to research more deeply operational stressors and stress relief, and my research included work sessions with the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center and a summit with the Naval Center for Combat and Operational Stress Control, COSC. A study by the Army's Mental Health Advisory Team, MHAT-4, on troops who had served in Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2005 to 2007 leaped out at me. Every soldier returning home completed an anonymous survey to identify possible stress-related disorders. The study showed that soldiers with high combat experience screened positive for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, symptoms 20% of the time when they viewed their leaders favorably. When soldiers viewed their leaders unfavorably, the PTSD positive rate jumped to 40%. A group of Marines tested PTSD positive 44% of the time under unfavorable leaders versus 19% of the time under favorable ones. The takeaway? Stress symptoms roughly double when the troops don't view their leadership favorably. Good leadership provides a protective influence to maintain mental health and well-being, even in the face of extreme combat. Steely-eyed killers in your workplace. Though not a doctor, I have become something of an expert on PTSD through my SEAL experience. As I studied the effects of leadership on stress and PTSD, I came across a Washington, D.C. psychiatrist and specialist on the topic. She pointed out that most of her clients were business people exhibiting many of the same stress symptoms as combat veterans. A bad boss, a toxic environment, fear of losing their job, marketplace uncertainty, and many other typical stressors of modern corporate life collectively produced enough stress to fill her office on a daily basis. As you can imagine, being a SEAL subjects you to great amounts of stress and fear. Studies have shown that fear shuts down the executive part of your brain, the part responsible for imagination and problem solving. The brain doesn't know the difference between fear associated with a toxic leader and fear that a lion on the savannah may be stalking you. First, Fast, Fearless is meant to capture the leadership traits that most effectively deal with the fear and stress the environment puts on the team. First, Fast, Fearless is not, however, a quick-fix tool. Rather, it portrays a leadership system, one that becomes a way of life. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work with great people and great leaders. SEALs and other special operations forces have developed their leadership styles more deeply since 9/11 than in their prior history. Most were forged in the heat of battle where the stakes are highest, but I believe they carry over with great effect to the business battlefield as well. Many of the same issues and challenges are there, just without the bullets, bombs, and life and death choices evident in the military edition. Leadership must be a way of life and must be driven by a strong ethos. The difference between authentic leadership and demonstration leadership, usually an assertion of ego and power, is readily apparent to everyone on a team, especially in the heat of battle. As you read, you'll come to see that military and non-military situations are more similar than not when it comes to stress and leadership. The first, Fast, Fearless leadership style is effective in both contexts. With respect to leadership, our steely-eyed killers are really no different from you. One final note. A lot of what happens in the life of a SEAL happens very fast and may occasionally be obscured by the fog of war. As such, what you read here is what I lived and learned to the best of my memory. The first Fast, Fearless tour of duty. It's time for a direct action assault into the world of First, Fast, Fearless leadership. First, Fast, Fearless leadership, as we practice it on the SEAL teams, is made up of three key elements: brand, brotherhood, and battle rhythm. Whether or not SEALs have direct reports, we are all leaders, and, as such, we all develop these three attributes from day one. Brand refers to your own personal leadership style. After committing to become a leader, or a leader of leaders, as a member of the SEAL teams, you develop a style and brand over time. The first, fast, fearless brand includes a first-strike mindset, an all-in commitment to ethos, a strong sense of humility and humanity, and an always-on nature, among other traits. Part 1. Do your part first. The brand of a true leader examines the essence of a strong first, fast, fearless leadership brand, what it is, what it isn't, and how you get there. Once brand is established, the next critical element is brotherhood. Among SEALs, little else comes through more clearly than the sense of sacrifice, teamwork, and mutual commitment we have to each other. Brotherhood is more than teamwork. It is always on, and it is directed by deep inner values far beyond simply collaborating and leveraging each other's capabilities. Part 2. Running to the sound of gunfire. The essence of brotherhood describes the true nature of first, fast, fearless style brotherhood. What makes it happen? What makes it tick? And how it's different from what you've probably experienced as a civilian. Finally, while brand and brotherhood are critically important, they aren't sufficient to accomplish an important mission or goal. A musician can play music individually, but the impact of the music greatly expands when musicians play together in rhythm. A conductor sets an orchestra's rhythm. What we do in the SEAL teams is more like jazz. We all have the rhythm in our heads to move forward as a team without the presence of a central commanding leader. I find such rhythm to be the highest essence of how the SEAL teams work. To the extent that you can play jazz in the workplace, you'll get much further, much faster, all with less fear and stress. Part 3. Battle Rhythm. Turning brand and brotherhood into music explains how battle rhythm can become a regular part of your organizational life. Before getting into the 3 parts, in Chapter 1, I take you through a short pre-tour basic training to describe what SEALs are and how people become SEALs, both of which set the stage for what follows. Hoo-yah! Chapter 1. A Special Kind of Warrior. The SEAL Ethos. In times of war or uncertainty, there is a special breed of warrior ready to answer our nation's call. A common man with uncommon desire to succeed. Forged by adversity, he stands alongside America's finest special operations forces to serve his country, the American people, and protect their way of life. I am that man. My trident is a symbol of honor and heritage. Bestowed upon me by the heroes that have gone before, it embodies the trust of those I have sworn to protect. By wearing the trident, I accept the responsibility of my chosen profession and way of life. It is a privilege that I must earn every day. My loyalty to country and team is beyond reproach. I humbly serve as a guardian to my fellow Americans, always ready to defend those who are unable to defend themselves. I do not advertise the nature of my work, nor seek recognition for my actions. I voluntarily accept the inherent hazards of my profession, placing the welfare and security of others before my own. I serve with honor on and off the battlefield. The ability to control my emotions and my actions, regardless of circumstance, sets me apart from other men. Uncompromising integrity is my standard. My character and honor are steadfast. My word is my bond. We expect to lead and to be led. In the absence of orders, I will take charge, lead my teammates, and accomplish the mission. I lead by example in all situations. I will never quit. I persevere and thrive on adversity. My nation expects me to be physically harder and mentally stronger than my enemies. If knocked down, I will get back up, every time. I will draw on every remaining ounce of strength to protect my teammates and to accomplish our mission. I am never out of the fight. We demand discipline. We expect innovation. The lives of my teammates and the success of our mission depend on me, my technical skill, tactical proficiency, and attention to detail. My training is never complete. We train for war and fight to win. I stand ready to bring the full spectrum of combat power to bear in order to achieve my mission and the goals established by my country. The execution of my duties will be swift and violent when required, yet guided by the very principles that I serve to defend. Brave men have fought and died building the proud tradition and feared reputation that I am bound to uphold. In the worst of conditions, the legacy of my teammates steadies my resolve and silently guides my every deed. I will not fail. At the Underwater Demolition Team, UDT/SEAL Museum in Fort Pierce, Florida, stands the statue of a lone fighter, clad only in swim trunks with no equipment other than his fins and dive mask. At his feet he has a sack of explosives. When this lone man enters the water in the dark, he has nothing but the skills and values he has developed through his training. With the simplest equipment, he is deadly. These warriors swam onto the beaches of all the major landings in World War II. About 75% of them were either killed or wounded, and most people don't know they ever existed. Sailors on the ships thought the warriors were crazy and referred to them as naked warriors. These were the archetypal frogmen, the predecessor to the Navy SEALs. Even today, we still call ourselves frogmen and naked warriors. SEAL stands for Sea, Air, and Land. As the U.S. Navy's principal special operations force, SEALs have evolved into one of the leading special operations forces in the world. There are about 2,700 SEALs on active duty, around 1,200 of whom are engaged in frontline duty. Navy SEALs are trained to operate in all environments, the sea, air, and land for which we are named. We are trained to operate in climate extremes, including Arctic cold, scorching desert, and jungle environments. Our tasks include direct action, special reconnaissance, counter-terrorist operations, foreign internal defense, and unconventional warfare. We also engage in counter-illegal drug trafficking operations and hostage and personnel recovery. Historically, we have had one foot in the water, but more recently, many of our operations have occurred in the mountains and deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan. Today, our business is wherever our country's need takes us. What is a warrior anyway? You'd probably define a warrior as someone who fights in a war. However, the truer definition separates the warrior from the common soldier. A warrior is a specialist within the context of a tribal or clan-based society that recognizes a separate warrior class. A warrior gets the job done, whether through direct combat or other means. The warrior sees the big picture and the greater good of his actions. The warrior seeks to win and to defeat, not necessarily to destroy. SEALs are an elite team of warriors who become part of the brotherhood because we want to belong and we want to succeed. A warrior, in short, is a leader. A mercenary does a job because he's paid to. A soldier does his because he's ordered to. A warrior does it because he wants to. The core ideas: physical and moral courage, team ability, and problem solving. It's not easy for us SEALs to describe ourselves. Unfortunately, the movie industry doesn't help much, for we are often portrayed as highly skilled killers capable of taking out our targets under extreme conditions. That's true. We can kill. Sometimes we have to. And we do it under adversity. But we're a whole lot more than that. We are leaders possessing traits of physical and moral courage, team ability, and problem solving, traits that we recruit for, select, and train into every SEAL. The SEAL ethos encapsulates it far better than the movies do. What are these special traits? In our context, the physical courage to be a warrior is obvious. Behind that, however, lies a deep well of moral courage, the honesty, humility, dependability, and emotional fortitude that lead to trust and consistency of action. Moral courage and fortitude are as important as physical courage. If a person is untrustworthy under fire, he, see What About Women later in the chapter, cannot be a SEAL. You won't find the word teamability in the dictionary. It's the term we use to describe the ability to accept your role on the team and to place the team before yourself. We use the term and deploy the concept all the time. We reinforce teamwork and hold each SEAL and SEAL trainee accountable by assigning what we call a swim buddy. A team player must be able to lead and to follow interchangeably. SEALs also must have a natural ability to solve complex problems. We don't and can't train problem-solving ability into SEAL recruits. But we do test for the ability, and we build teams that foster individual ability to solve problems, which is what every leader should do. A group of physically and morally courageous warriors acting together as a team to problem solve toward a stated mission or goal. That's who we SEALs really are. Whether in direct combat or helping others solve problems, we are all leaders, trained as leaders and engaged as leaders. Let's put a man on the moon. We need SEALs, too. How did we get from the naked warrior frogmen to today's modern SEAL warrior? I won't cover every step in the history of the SEAL teams, our victories and conquests, changes in structure and leadership, and so forth. That can all be found easily on the Internet. The official Naval Special Warfare website at www.sealswcc.com is an excellent source. Our story is one of evolution to meet the rapidly changing circumstances and context of modern warfare. In the 1961 speech in which he announced his plan to put a man on the moon, President John F. Kennedy, against the backdrop of guerrilla warfare in Vietnam, also announced his intention to strengthen U.S. Special Forces and unconventional warfare capabilities. He created the first two SEAL teams, which formally came to be in January 1962. While this action launched the SEAL teams, the idea of special operations was hardly new. Today's Navy SEALs can trace our roots to World War II, where at least 4 different groups of special forces played important roles in both the European and Pacific theaters, from reconnaissance to direct assistance with the beach landings on D-Day and on numerous Pacific islands, and other amphibious operations. These ancestor teams included the Special Service units of the Scouts and Raiders Beach Reconnaissance Teams, the Naval Combat Demolition Units who bravely demolished waterborne barriers in North Africa and Normandy, the operational swimmers of the Office of Strategic Services, who pioneered much of today's underwater diving equipment, and the Navy underwater demolition teams who saw World War II action primarily in the Pacific. Kennedy's announcement formalized and gave visibility to something that had existed for 20 years, a special force for the future. Instead of several smaller forces within our major military branches, the SEALs would become the lead force to conduct highly skilled, low-visibility operations with high strategic impact. Today's SEALs operate within the U.S. Navy as part of the Naval Special Warfare Command and U.S. Special Operations Command, but occasionally they serve under or in cooperation with other operations, such as the CIA's Special Operations Group. SEALs also team up with special forces from other countries, such as the British Special Forces. Today, there are 8 conventional SEAL teams based on 2 SEAL bases, one in Coronado, California, and the other in Little Creek, outside of Virginia Beach, Virginia. A more specialized team known as the Naval Warfare Special Development Group is now deployed for especially important and classified counter-terrorist operations, such as the 2011 dispatch of Osama bin Laden. SEAL Special Vehicle Delivery Team 1 is another more specialized SEAL group. Up until recently, most SEAL operations were just as one might expect: clandestine, low visibility, high impact, low publicity operations, such as clearing a beach of concrete barriers and mines for an amphibious landing. But as SEALs have been pulled into the highly charged, non-conventional warfare theaters of Iraq and Afghanistan, we have gained a higher profile. Not necessarily a good thing or desirable in special operations. SEALs were not only involved in the bin Laden takedown, the details of which have recently come to light, but were also involved.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?